Hello again, my friends. Good morning, Trumptopia. I am your host, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo. And today is the 12th day of the 7th month of the first year of Trumptopia. Formerly the 2017th year of our Lord, Jesus Christ, the Savior of humanity. Good morning, my fellow Trumptopians. Are you awake yet, my friends? All right, folks, let's get today's show started. First of all, I want to thank you for tuning in, especially if you're new to the program. I am your host, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo. Yes, that is a fictitious name. I am a fictitious character, but I speak the truth to power. Anybody curious about the meaning or significance of my nom de guerre or my pseudonym? Feel free to ask that question and any other questions you may want addressed on this or any of my other podcast segment miniseries. You can submit those questions, thoughts, queries, complaints, suggestions, and other observations to the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo at gmail.com. Make sure to spell check incorrigible, or just click on the link in any of my profiles. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and just about any other social media where there's an audience worth chasing down. Just type in @Mr. Zeppo or hashtag Mr. Zeppo or etc., etc., etc. By the way, if you are on a social media platform that you think I need to be on, that I'm not on yet, hit me up, let me know. I'll check it out. And I'll be sure to give a shout out of thanks to you. Okay. So, here we are. Rolling along, trying to get the Trumptopia experiment to make sense in my head. And today's episode is about witch hunts. I'm a little late to this party train, I know. I thought I was onto something when it just hit me this morning that, hey, Trump's been saying witch hunt a lot. I better do a commentary on that. So I looked it up, and yeah, plenty of the mainstream media has already kind of tackled this issue. But I still got lots of thoughts on it, and I figured, what the heck, might as well do a little bit of something on that, and then we'll spread out and do a bunch of other things, or talk about some other things too. For example, this morning there was live coverage of the what do you call it when oh my goodness, my brain is all kinds of mush today because of this summer cold I've been fighting, so forgive me, folks. I'm dropping words and vocabulary left and right. But we'll talk about that. Christopher Wray, Trump's nominee to replace Comey as the FBI director. Some public hearings this morning on the news. We will talk about that. Going to talk about some of history's most crazy real-life witch hunts. Probably just going to skim through that because it's sort of the same story at every point. But there's a fascinating trend here. And then, of course, as always, we'll address some of the never-ending questions around fake news, real news, dichotomy. So, witch hunts. Witch hunts. This is the greatest witch hunt of American political history. Is that true? What is a witch hunt? What does that mean? If you type in definition witch hunt, you get a very simple... Oh, I already closed that tab. Why do I always do this to myself? Definition witch hunt. I did this earlier in preparation, and then I think my laptop's starting to get a little laggy, mostly because I had the Sprecher platform kind of hanging out in the background waiting for me to gather my thoughts. And I'm like, I better close a bunch of these windows, these tabs, because I had a bunch of tabs open as I was like skimming through the various articles from, snarky quote-unquote mainstream media publications. And there's a lot of hay being made about this phrase and Donald Trump's use of it. But what does it mean? What does it actually mean? Where does it come from? Is there a history to this phrase? According to Google, and the very first definition, I think, is just Google, right? Definition of witch hunt. Witch hunt. Noun, historical. A search for and subsequent persecution of a supposed witch. So that's the historical definition. Informal. A campaign directed against a person or group holding unorthodox or popular or unpopular views. And if you look across different definition platforms, it kind of, the Collins English Dictionary defines it as an attempt to find and punish a particular group of people who are being blamed for something. They all kind of generally around the Cambridge definition. An attempt to find and punish people whose opinions are unpopular. It's interesting. As you scan through the definitions across different, dictionary websites, I was gonna say profiles, like they were profiles on a dating app. But if you scan across different dictionary websites, you'll notice the trend is about unpopular opinion. It's fascinating. What is that? How does that reflect on Mr. Trump's use of the term? Oh, by the way, looking back at the historical sense, I scanned this and I found one great article on The Richer, which is a website I've never heard of. So if it's extremely biased or if it's got some scandal around it, forgive me. But the facts check out. It was a straightforward top 10 list with a 3-paragraph blurb of some history, and I did a little bit of kind of second layer double checking, and yeah, these names all check out. So this is there was one name that I couldn't get because like I was saying, my laptop started getting really laggy, and this is when I decided to close out all the tabs, and I got a little tab crazy. I was waiting for the page to load a little more so I can look at the last name. So I scanned through the article, did a little bit of double checking verification stuff, then came back and scanned from the bottom up to jot down all the dates and names. So I'm missing one name and one date, which don't correlate. But in 1680, there was a witch hunt of a woman, and her story was blurred there. But here's the rest of them, the top 9. The top 9 historical witch hunts, according to this one platform. No endorsement intended. I just found it interesting and straightforward. Agnes Simpson in 1590. Alice Kettler in 1324. Angela de Barth, 1275. Mother Shipton in 1561. Marie Jeans de Tar, 1676. Marie Levieux, 1874. Agnes Waterhouse somewhere in the mid 1800s. I didn't get a date. And of course, the Salem witch trials here in the great old US of A, back before it was the US of A, in 1692, and Mère Gabain in 1606. These are all women who were accused of being witches and were hunted down and were put on trial. Most of them tortured, beaten, abused in some form or another, and most of them killed for their trouble. It's a fascinating trend, isn't it? Now, I know that the historical intent of the definition and the political intent of the definition have a little bit of crowbar definition space separating them, kind of forced in there in our minds. But I humbly submit to you that the term witch hunt in and of itself is inherently and by nature pejorative to females, and thereby chauvinistic and misogynistic in nature. And I don't like it, but that's just my personal opinion. Witch hunt, witch hunt, witch hunt. I think very much like witch hunt, Trump uses this phrase, not very much like witch hunt, very much like fake news. Trump uses this phrase witch hunt to automatically dismiss any headline, any statement, any accusation, any question that remotely challenges his authority or his version of reality. And that, on the surface, is sort of like a sociopathic, pathological liar kind of thing to do. To always disparage that which is inconvenient. Instead of stepping up to it and saying, oh, you think that? You want to accuse me of that? Bring it on. Here's my closet. There are no skeletons in it. Let's be frank, folks. And I know that there's a lot of people listening who are already on this side of the fence, and that you're listening for the entertainment value about it, and to see, to hear out my crazy theories and maybe, share my point of view with others who don't agree. And so I address this to those who maybe had this shared at them. Hint, nudge, nudge, dear listener, share this at people who need to hear it. But I propose to you, dear listeners who may not already be on this side of the fence, that a fearless and honest inventory of Donald J. Trump's behavior, which categorically can be identified as two-faced and flip-floppy, and severely self-serving, a really serious moral and honest and severe inventory of that behavior is long overdue by the army of blind faith followers that makes up the core of this Trumptopian nation of ours. Why? Because as I was pointing out to someone on social media in the middle of the night last night, in the middle of some commentary thread discussion, that the simple, plain fact of the matter is, as a human being, before he ever declared any interest, or before he announced that he was going to run for office, for the majority of his adult life, Donald J. Trump has factually and categorically issued lots of lies and, acted in a less than direct and honest and transparent way with the businesses he does deals with the contractors that he hires, and this is all real. Okay? So blind faith stage 4 clingers need to check themselves a little bit and step back and go, wait a minute, I really do need to reinvestigate this. But let's zoom back to this witch hunt situation with this use of the term. I don't think it's a valid. I don't think this is a witch hunt, folks. If that isn't obvious, and I'm pretty sure that there's a there to some degree or another. It may not be what the left wing echo chamber media wants us to think it is, and that's kind of important to let that sink in. And it isn't whatever's going on. It isn't what the right wing media is talking about. But let's look at some of the historical facts about real witch hunts. Real witch hunts. Let's look at that for a second. A, those who are the subject of a witch hunt have traditionally been women who were nonconformists and who stood up for beliefs that were unpopular at the time. Beliefs or opinions or political views or spiritual views, and who were generally innocent of the crimes as accused. How do we know they were generally innocent of witchcraft? Because witchcraft, no offense, my dear fellow Wiccans, witchcraft as typically, stereotypically, traditionally defined in the pseudo Judeo-Christian traditional sense, in the historical sense of, we're going to track down those women and kill them, that kind of witchcraft is bullshit. That kind of witchcraft is a tool of oppression. That kind of witchcraft is a false ideology that is projected onto someone in order to subjugate them, to vilify them, to accuse them of something so radically ungodly as to be a tool of fear-mongering for the public. For what purpose? To manufacture consent for the acts of violence perpetuated on those women. I humbly submit to you, my fellow Trumptopians, regardless of where on the ideological echo chamber spectrum you may be clinging to, and I humbly submit directly to the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, should he happen to be listening, or should anyone listening happen to want to forward this to him, or make a meme and share it at him on my behalf, because my meme-making time is limited at this point. I'm focusing on certain things and not spending a lot of time making new original memes at this moment. But I humbly submit to y'all that I just named, this is not a witch hunt. What Donald Trump is calling a witch hunt is not a witch hunt. Here's why. Donald Trump's not a woman. And I know that may seem like irrelevant surface, potentially, sexism baiting or something. But let's be clear. Other than a few of the more postmodern political iterations of the use of the term, which is sort of like a reappropriation of it for other political purposes than what it was originally representing as a term, those are really recent and motivated by political, what would you call it? Sleight of hand, distraction, political spin doctoring, political deflection. That is what's going on. That is why Donald Trump and his surrogates are running around spewing that word over and over again. Witch hunt, witch hunt, witch hunt. Say it enough times and all your blind faith followers will say it with you, even if they don't understand the historical context, the actual definition, or all the ways in which what you're calling a witch hunt is not a witch hunt. Here's why. Here's why what's going on right now is not a witch hunt. Both politically and historically, for it to be truly a witch hunt, the presumption of innocence has to be foregone or abandoned or neglected or disabused in some fashion. Okay? Dear Donald Trump, you are still protected by the constitutional right of being provided the presumption of innocence until being proven guilty. No one is accusing you of being guilty of things just yet. Please note, my friends, whether you're a blind faith follower or whether you're a resistance activist, let's be really clear. At no point in time should we be presuming Donald Trump's guilt, nor anyone else's in the system. We need to, right now, one of the things that's being overlooked, or I think is not being addressed clearly, is that this is a moment in American history where we, the people, have a moral obligation to, one, hold ourselves accountable to the values and the process of, the fair process of following the facts wherever they may lead before lynch mobbing somebody politically. And two, hold our quote-unquote representatives accountable to do the same. How are they? Because let's be really clear, folks. They are not our representatives if we, the people, fail to demand that they represent us. And that is on us, my friends. That is on you as a citizen of the United States. Whether you like the system or not, whether you believe in voting or not, whether you are a blind statist or an anti-statism kind of person, this is the system we live in. And while, yes, I'm all for developing a new system that works so much better that everyone abandons the old system and migrates to the new system, as the controversial but very intelligent and clear-sighted Buckminster Fuller once said. I can't quite remember what his controversy was. I think he was sort of ultra-conservative on some level, but he was also a clear-sighted futurist who, unless I'm deeply misinformed, had some very intelligent wisdom to share with the world, which borders on the transcendental. But I digress, my friend. Let us not presume his guilt, but also let us not blindly presume his innocence, right? He is given the benefit of the doubt of presumed innocence, but that does not mean that we must blindly assume that innocence is true and cling to it. Do we see the distinction that I'm trying to make there? There's like the legal presumption of innocence, and then there's the emotional, intellectual, spiritual, and energetic blind faith and attachment to a presumed innocence, which we need to be able to let go of should it prove to be false. And I say that with compassion and love to all the blind faith Trump clingers, because they're going to have, as many people have already pointed out, a really hard, come to Jesus moment. They're going to have a really hard wake-up moment. Those who cling the hardest are going to go down with the ship the furthest and are going to have a really tough time letting go when this ship goes down, because trust me, it's going to go down. One way or another, my friends, one way or another, this ship is going to sink. And by this ship, I mean the cloud of clusterfuckery that is the Trump administration. What Trump calls a witch trial is just an investigation, a series or a cloud or a collection of legitimate legal investigations that in theory, I don't know for a fact because I'm not up there live and in person. I don't have the means to go travel to Washington. Trust me, I'd love to have a whole season that's like Mr. Zeppo goes to Washington to firsthand observe and report on what's going on up there. If you like that idea and you want to see that happen, you can help. I still haven't done the work, but pretty soon I'm going to completely revamp my Patreon page. And when that does happen, I will make sure to have a big splash on social media and an announcement here. And if you want to help make this show a more consistent thing, if you want to help, all that stuff, boom, here's that shameless self-promotion plug. You can donate one-time donation vis-a-vis PayPal, or you can join my super cheap subscription support club over on Patreon, which, like I said, I need to completely rewrite, which is hopefully something I'm going to do this week. Okay, end of shameless plug. So, yes, witch hunts. Wow, I'm really burning up the time, aren't I? Witch hunts. Let's laugh and giggle at Mr. Trump's claim that this is the greatest witch hunt in all of history. I think politically the greatest witch hunt of all of history has to, at least top three, for me personally, from my perspective, McCarthyism. And I know a lot of people are already comparing this to the era of McCarthyism, but it's sort of like an isolated, only against Trump and Trump affiliates McCarthyism. And I think that's a silly comparison, because what the McCarthyism phenomenon was about was true false accusations against people that had nothing to do with nothing. For the sake of rooting out a small number of people that, yes, may have been legitimately involved with communist organizations, but all of it was a clusterfuck of misrepresenting what these isms mean and represent. Several American communists were also sort of opposed to the Soviet thing that was happening over there in communist Russia, as it was in turmoil and changing and beginning, on the beginnings, at the precipice of massive falling apart. We have to remember something, my friends, as I kind of zoom back. Nothing in history exists in isolation. Everything in history is part of a deeply entangled, intra-dependent web of things that are mutually arising and inherently inseparable from each other. What am I trying to say with that? As I have in the past, I want to drive home the point that Trump is not the cause of this Trumptopian madness we're currently living through. Trump is a symptom. Trump himself, as a human being, is a victim of all the deep historical momentum that has led up to this moment in time. He is a result of the disease and the spiritual malady that has plagued this society since long before the 13 corporations were established, which ultimately became the original 13 colonies, etc., etc., etc. I know, that's a crazy thing to say, huh? If you're just joining me, welcome to the crazy. You really want to binge all the past episodes. If you're new, if this is your first episode, welcome to my brand of crazy. I hope that in the long run you come around and don't think it sounds that crazy. That's a big statement I just made. And it's one of those really big statements that's difficult to prove. Just as difficult as saying something like up without down cannot exist. Sounds right, but can't really prove it. And simultaneously, some people have the imagination to imagine it, therefore making it seem not provable. But if you really deeply contemplate it and strip away your biases, you have to admit that the statement "you cannot have up without down" is A, empirically true, and B, not about up and down, but about the deep relativistic nature of the fabric of reality. Whoa, how did he get to that? We were talking about witch trials and Trumpism and Trumptopia. And if you're really new, you're probably wondering, what the fuck does he mean by Trumptopia? Is he trying to insult me? Is he trying to offend others? Like, what's going on there? I've said it before, and I'll have to say it again, I'm sure, as more new listeners join us. But we are all living in Trumptopia, regardless of our original political affiliations or beliefs, or lack thereof. We are all now unified in our Trumptopian status. Why? Because this is a community, this democracy in all living together in self-governance. And no matter what you think you know, no matter what you believe in, we are all stuck in this together. And so I think it is only fair that we live up to that fact. I reference this saying all the time. I didn't invent it, but I sure as heck identify very deeply with it. We blame society for all kinds of things all the time. Oh, blame society for this. Oh, woe's me, I blame society for that. But we, in saying that sort of thing, in blaming society for the things that stress us, disturb us, oppress us, hurt us, alienate us, etc., etc., etc. In blaming society, we, in that moment, deny that we ourselves are inseparable from society. I welcome anyone that can debunk that statement. I welcome anyone to try. Go ahead. Because I really do hope, while I prefer to have mostly supportive, like-minded viewers and listeners, I do not in any way, shape, or form shy away from listeners that are here to challenge or attempt to debunk what I'm saying. I am the first to say, oh smack, you are correct, I stand corrected. What I was saying before was incorrect, misguided, misinformed, short-sighted, etc. Whatever the correct adjustment may be, I will be the first one to do it. Because this show, this collection of shows, this little project of mine, is not about convincing anyone into subscribing to any particular belief structures that I may personally be trying to defend or define. Okay, so let's see, what else are we going to talk about before I have to move on to other segments? All right, I mentioned Christopher Wray, and this is very in the moment. He's the Trump nominee, if I'm not mistaken, to replace Mr. Comey as the FBI director. And that's an awkward thing, isn't it? To get nominated by the president to replace the guy that the same president that nominated you just fired. There's all kinds of complications there. And you know what? It's really worth, if you haven't watched the footage from this morning's hearing, it's probably, and you're interested and you have, or you're curious about who is going to take on the mantle of leading the G-men, as they were once sort of semi-dismissively or semi-irreverently called. It's worth taking a gander, because this guy presents, I don't know what his real intent is. Unless I'm in the same room face to face, I never presume to be able to read anyone's spiritual intent. But if I were ever to sit down in a room face to face with someone, I don't mean to pat myself on the back. I just know that in real life situations, when I can look into a person's eye, my intuition can read them 1,000 times clearer than I might be able to read them on television. But that doesn't mean that I can't read a person's body language or apparent internal intent at all. And based on what I saw, this guy seems like an earnest, statist, government guy. He's an agency man. And he does genuinely seem to have faith in the mission, as it were, of the agency. He looks like a legit, straight up guy who's gonna stand by what he says. And he said some interesting things. One of the two of which really are worth noting. He says, and I paraphrase, forgive the loose paraphrasing, retaliation against whistleblowers is wrong. That was an interesting point, and there was some discussion there. Another thing that he said was, and he addressed this out to the public, is anyone out there, and I'm paraphrasing again, forgive me, because I think I was making myself breakfast at the time, when this was on, and I didn't have notes handy, but I paid keen attention, and I welcome the technical correction in anyone out there listening. But he said something to the effect of, if anyone out there thinks I am going to pull my punches, they're in for a big surprise. Let me tell you, if I was the subject or the focus point of an FBI investigation, and I had just removed from office, legally or illegally, the guy that was running that operation, and then I picked this guy to take over, and he said those kinds of things at his approval hearing, or whatever it's called, the something hearing, the induction hearing, error file not found. Sorry, I have great vocabulary, but sometimes it just doesn't want to play. Especially when I haven't slept well, which I have not for the past week and a half. I digress. If I was in Trump's shoes, I'd be a little concerned about that kind of talk. But then again, it all could be reality show style entertainment, right? Because quite frankly, as I point out to people all the time, politics, especially in America, was, long before we had television, the original reality TV show. It's meant to entertain and distract and collude and garner support for and or manufacture consent for all the things that the ruling class are trying to achieve. And as we all know, and maybe this is shocking news to you if you're new to the program, but once you catch up, you'll realize that this is broken record time. What the 1% of the 1% want, at the core of their agenda, there is one simple thing that they are pursuing: exponentially increasing profit. That's why they are called, by some of us out there in the extreme alt center or the extreme alt enlightenment crowd. I don't know. If everyone's getting their extreme alt, there's an extreme alt right, there's an extreme alt left, there's extreme alt conservatives, extreme alt progressives, extreme alt Christians. Obviously, for some time now, there's been extreme alternative Muslims. And much underreported, but quite frankly, worth pointing out, there have been extreme alt Hindus, extreme alt Buddhists. Everybody's getting their extreme alt wing. So I want my extreme alt pacifists to rally here. As one of my most favorite memes points out, right now we must all remain calm and self-radicalize for peace. And I have a lot more to say on that, but I'll have to save it for other episodes because I am very gently approaching the end of my time. Random, sort of funny moment, and I like these quirky, sort of awkward things that have nothing to do with what's on TV, but it's happening right there on TV. There was a question that kept rolling through my mind as I was watching this live footage. I wasn't watching the rehash. It was live this morning after not sleeping all night. So it was really early in the day. And I was watching some of the live coverage, and I kept flipping from Fox to CNN to MSNBC to C-SPAN, etc. Who are these people, these seat fillers, these poor unfortunate souls that have to squirm and look uncomfortable and struggle not to spike the camera all the time, that are sitting behind either who are stuck sitting behind the representatives on the committee that are conducting the hearing, or are stuck sitting behind the guy being interviewed? It was basically a two-shot setup. It's usually pretty simple at these hearings because the raw footage comes from C-SPAN, which is a nonpartisan, everyone in the industry support, like subsidizes it, and yet no one in the industry has rules over it. Kind of, live feed into the people's houses of representation. And so the news media can't control very much about what's going on these live feeds. They can just choose to, edit down for their rehash segments later on. So no matter what you do, you always end up noticing, I always do anyways, I end up noticing, oh dang it, ding, we are at less than 4 minutes and 20 seconds left. So I've got to really wrap it up. There's always these kids, these really awkward, young-looking people that either look bored, they're looking uncomfortable, they're looking fidgety, and they're clearly spiking the camera and then realizing, oh shit, I'm not supposed to spike the camera, and looking away. And I want to know who the fuck they are. Not because I'm upset at them, I just think it's hilarious, and I'm curious as to know why they're there. They look like seat fillers. They look like people who really, 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 really wanted to get into the Oscars and then didn't realize it'd be stuck sitting next to celebrities they don't know, and near the front row with lots of cameras zooming past them, not to look at them, but to look at the celebrities, and that they're not supposed to look like they're trying to catch the attention of the camera, which puts a person who's not used to being in front of the camera in a really awkward position. Because then every little thing gets overanalyzed inside your head, right? That was the comedy today from the news coverage. I just found it enjoyable. Anybody who's a longtime fan knows that I find that kind of thing funny. There's a really awkward wink moment that was captured on something on C-SPAN being played on MSNBC, and I was watching it live, and I had to pause it and rewind it and videotape it because it was too darn goofy to me. I don't remember it was so funny. I cannot remember what the occasion was, why we were watching, who was being interviewed. There was a really cute girl in the audience. She didn't look a day over 22 into my eye. She was just really cute, sort of like girl next door, plain Jane type. It was really pretty, but really subdued and simple, and sort of like a master of her own domain. And the camera is like gently panning, but sort of lingering on her. It was supposed to be a broad camera sweep of the audience at this event, which was very political in nature. It was not a concert or anything. And this camera sort of lingers. I know I'm probably reading way too much into it, but it's what made it hilarious. The camera lingers in such a way that I could not help but project and assume, and I might be wrong and I know this, but it looked like that whoever the person behind the camera was noticed the very cute girl, thought she was really cute, and wanted to linger on her so she would notice she was on camera, and maybe, therefore notice the camera operator behind the camera. And what was ridiculously hilarious about this, and I know this got nothing to do with nothing, but it's just too funny of a moment, is that she winks. Ding! She just straight up spikes the camera, and then gives you this like, I'm a master of my own domain kind of woman. Wink. And then just, very, very, very composedly returns her attention to whatever's center stage. Alright, if you haven't seen that, go look it up. It's in my very earliest of YouTube videos. It won't be here on Sprecher. It won't be on any of the podcast platforms. But if you go to YouTube and look me up, YouTube/C-Tag Studios, if you're ever curious about checking out my YouTube stuff. There's a few videos there that are not part of the podcast stuff. But I digress. I am totally running out of time. So thanks again for listening, folks. And I hope that I've been entertaining and interesting and thought-provoking. If you agree or if you disagree, let me know. Comments, questions, suggestions, recommendations, complaints, always welcome. You can email me, or you can post directly on my social media, and I will make a concerted effort to respond to your comments on the air. As a matter of fact, I'm going to probably do